First Nation and Native American Reservation Sightings, Part 17. Cannibal Man, the Evil Thing. Adisea is a term the Zuni Indians, Ashawi Indians, used to describe their rendition of the Sasquatch. They are a Pueblo people residing on the bank of the Rio Zuni near the boundary of New Mexico and in the adjoining villages of Nutria, Ojo Caliente, and Pescado. The name Zuni is a Spanish corruption of the Kirasan Sunafisti and was first used by Antonio de Espejo in 1583. The Zuni natives, however, call themselves Ashawi Indians, and they know their territory as Shawona. The term Adisea translates cannibal man, the evil thing. Many Native American terms for Bigfoot-like creatures translate the same with little variation. It was an Ashawi woman who notified me of their track sighting in New Mexico, Sunday, January 30th, 2005. She and her oldest son saw tracks from the ski lift at Angel Fire Ski Resort that crossed under the lift and trailed off into the trees. The track line was straight, no snow was kicked up, and she estimated the depth of the fresh snow, the powder, at the level on the mountain was approximated at 15 inches deep. The woman told me she was Ashawi and Spanish heritage, and her maternal great-grandmother, whose parents were inhabitants of the Shawona territory in what is now New Mexico, first warned her family of the great Adisea. They believe the Adisea is a bad spirit, hair-covered cannibal giant that kidnaps little children of eating size and women of marriageable or suitable age. They take them away to their lair in the tallest mountains and make wives out of them or cook and eat them at a celebration meal for their kind. A few captives have been released for reasons unknown to tribal members. Those who endured Sasquatch captivity didn't always return in great physical condition. There was testimony that a few were reportedly physically frail, much thinner than when they were captured. The women were pale and sallow-looking. Many had a consumption type of cough, suggestive of being held in inhospitable conditions with poor air circulation. Consumption, of course, is very old terminology for tuberculosis. The Ashawi believe it is of bad portent of things to come when the great Adisea makes an appearance. The belief in Sasquatch kidnapping behavior tends to be a conviction that reoccurs among many tribes. It is apparently a common theme not only among Native Americans, but First Nation people as well. Exchanging gifts. Marie Abraham on September 9, 2011, made mention of Sasquatch gift-giving among the Lillooet in British Columbia, Canada. They understand gifts. Some older ladies used to go fishing along Lillooet Lake, would leave an extra fish on the log near the edge of the forest in the evenings. In the morning, the fish would be gone. My sister saw a Sasquatch along Duffy Lake Road a few years ago. When we go by there, sometimes we leave apples, cucumbers, and plums for them. My cousin used to tie bannock in a plastic bag up a tree for the Sasquatches. It would be gone in the morning. Gifts to the Sasquatches. This is one way to thank them, but they don't expect to be thanked like everybody else. They don't expect a medal, a flag, handshakes, and pictures taken like other heroes receive. Somaquam and Skokumchuk are words that refer to a Sasquatch-like life form recognized by the lower Lillooet River Indians. The term Kwai Atalatl is ancient Halkomelem First Nation terminology. Translated means the tree striker. It refers to those who make a great noise breaking trees down in the forest and screaming. The ancient First Nation Halkomelem people of the Upper Fraser Valley in British Columbia say that if you try to follow them, they will lead you in circles until you're half crazy. Over time, there were those in research who tried to suggest that Quiatalatl referred to wood on wood knocking. If that had any truth to it, Renee DeHenden did not mention it when we talked about it. Just as Quiatalatl is the ancient Halkomelem term, Sasquatch or its derivatives would be an anglicization of the Lower Fraser term Sasquatch, which occurs in the mainland dialects of the Halkomelem language. This language, a member of the Salish language family, is spoken in southwestern British Columbia in the Lower Fraser Valley from Yale to the mouth of the Fraser, and on southeastern Vancouver Island from Nanu's Bay to Malahat. The word occurs in all of the mainland dialects, but not in the island dialects. Since the late 1950s, of course, they are also called Bigfoot. Hickory Apache Reservation, Rio Arriba County, New Mexico, May 2001. Sasquatch steps easily over a 4-strand barbed wire fence. My wife and I are retired. We have been on the road in our RV for about 2 months now. 2 weeks ago, we were traveling north from Taos, New Mexico, into Colorado to leisurely tour the Rockies. It was 4 in the morning when we moved our motorhome out of the lot near the Hickory Apache Tribal Headquarters. At the junction of J44 and J9, we turned north and started down the road. After traveling only a few miles in a northward direction somewhere between Dulce, New Mexico and Juanita, Colorado, this bizarre thing walked out on the 2-lane road and stood there. At first I thought it was someone going to flag us down, and my wife went to make sure the door was locked in the back of our RV. I slowed the speed down so she wouldn't fall down, and in my headlights, this thing became clearer as we approached. I yelled at the wife to look at this thing in the road. We didn't know what it was at the time, but we wrote down the description in our trip book. I can describe it. It was massively built around the shoulders, chest area, and upper arms, and stands on 2 legs. It was a male, as we saw the penis that was clearly visible and semi-erect. No bear does that. This guy was covered in hair, some long, some short, and very curly, except for the areas on the chest and face. His face was light-skinned, but we could see of it clearly. His eyes seemed deep-set under some thick eyebrows, but I don't know what color the eyes were. It had high cheekbones, a flattish nose, not a bear snout, and no muzzle like a bear or big dog. Believe us, I want you to know this was no bear. His cheek and chin was fully bearded but short, black, and bristly. This thing had hands and not paws or claws. We both saw and agreed on that. I cannot overstate it was not a bear. I know this because I flicked my high beams at it, and it stood like a man on 2 legs, but seemed dazed or maybe confused by the headlights. It stared back at us. By now I was just crawling along the road at 1 mile per hour, flicking the high beams off and on again, then laid on the horn. That was when this thing finally moved to my left and off into the darkness out of the path of my headlights. I grabbed for the dash map light and tried to see it out my side wing, but as best I could tell with the window reflecting back the light, now get this. This thing easily stepped over a 4-strand barbed wire fence and walked out of sight into the darkness. No bear can do that. The next day we stopped between the Pagosa Padre Ranger Station and Pagosa River campgrounds. We met a man named Jim Baker. This person from the Elk River campground was out walking his dog. As campers sometimes do, we struck up a conversation and eventually told him what we saw. He suggested Bigfoot, and we should report this sighting to the rangers in Pagosa. But the fellow just laughed and said it must have been a bear. I insist it was no bear because no bear steps over a barbed wire fence that easily. Baker said, well then maybe a Bigfoot. We found your website and now report this to you. Thank you for this information on Bigfoot. Whatever this thing is, it is real and they are pretty big fellows. Mitch. P.S. So you know we aren't crazy people. My wife and I are retired school teachers, English Lit and Speech, and my wife, U.S. History. 2001, The Mitchell Story, BFE. Blackfeet Country, Glacier County, Montana. Signs of a Sasquatch were found wandering all around Cutbank Creek in Blackfeet Country in Glacier County, Montana on March 2006. Bruce Schiltz, who lives in nearby Kiowa Camp, took his children to play in the snow in the area when they were startled to find the tracks frozen solid in snow, ice, and mud. Schiltz counted 30 or 40 tracks that measured 18 inches long and 10 inches wide. Stride length averaged 39 inches. Photographs were taken and presented to the Blackfeet Fish and Wildlife Director, Gail Skunkhat, who said they had been receiving phone calls from all over by people asking about the possibility of Bigfoot living in the area. They asked the Wildlife Director if it was okay to shoot the creature, but Skunkhat said, shooting is likely unnecessary since no record of an attack on any person has ever been recorded, and people should consider that they might be shooting at someone playing a practical joke. Someone could get hurt. They aren't always the quiet ones. Wild Man, a Nehalem wild man story. The people of Tillamook County were drying fish up the Nehalem River in Oregon when they heard a noise. The brush was crackling loudly. They knew no wind or common animal could be making that kind of noise. They hurried into their canoes and crossed over to the other side of the river. They forgot their little dog. They crawled into a hiding place and laid down to listen. Their little dog barked and barked, then suddenly quit. Then they heard a terrific noise as Wild Man knocked down one side of the house where they were drying fish. Then he must have gone back into the woods. They could not sleep, they were so frightened, although they knew it was such a deep river that he would be unable to wade it. The next day, one fellow went over in a canoe to have a look. One side of that large house where they had dried fish was smashed to pieces. The dog was lying there dead, and Wild Man's huge tracks were all around. That fellow came back and told the village people, "Yes, I saw his tracks." They put all of their belongings and their fish in canoes and left that place for good. They would not live there any more for fear he might come again. After that, no one would camp on that side of the river again. True story. Citation, Robert J. Franks, 1990, Nehalem, Tillamook Tales. To be continued, and thank you for listening. There will be many parts to the reading of this book. If you like this reading, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification button to be sure to catch the future parts. We welcome comments, but please be considerate of others. If you have had an experience with or about Bigfoot, cryptids, UFO'S, paranormal, or any other strange happenings and would like to share them on our channel to be read, please email them to sharingofstrangestories@gmail.com. Our goal is to establish a channel that can provide an outlet for people to speak freely of their experiences without ridicule from others. There are many of us out there that have had these experiences and have felt that ridicule, but ridicule will not be welcome here. Emails will be read on our channel, so please keep them family friendly. If you want to remain anonymous and do not want your name read to the public, please put that at the beginning of the email or in the subject line. Thanks again for listening and stay safe.